All right, Pat O'Connor is the mayor of Whitesboro. And we talked to him a few weeks back on the seal issue. And he's back on. Big vote coming tomorrow. And this merger started out as a much larger merger, but I believe New York Mills has backed out, and somebody else backed out of it as well. Pat, good morning, Mayor. Thanks for coming.
Good morning.
My
pleasure.
You would be for this. We spoke to one of the council people who was against it last hour. Why is this such a important thing to happen for the people of your town?
Well, it's not just the people of my town, Bill. It's the people of the village of Oriskany, the town of Whitestown, and obviously the people I represent in the village of Whitesboro. You know, the fact of the matter is that state government is making it harder and harder on small governments like towns and villages to do business the way that they used to.
Yeah.
And the only way to survive in the future is through consolidation and shared services, and essentially that's what this proposal is all about.
One of the issues that was brought up earlier is that these commissioners would be appointed and not elected. And I know there's a lot of talk about taxes could be raised without any input from the people whatsoever, because these are appointed positions. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I have four thoughts on why they absolutely need to be appointed. The first is the proposal itself. A proposal is only as strong as the way that it's executed. And for us as officials, 13 out of 15, in fact, that supported this proposal, the only way or the strongest way to ensure that the proposal is carried out the way it was presented to taxpayers is that if we are able to have a part in selecting who the commissioners are, to make sure they're of the same mindset of the same people that supported this proposal. Essentially, Bill, if these commissioners are elected, you could elect 5 people that had nothing to do with the last year and a half of hard work that made up this proposal and change the whole entire thing on taxpayers.
Right.
So, again, execution of the proposal is key, and the best way to guarantee that is for us to be able to appoint those commissioners.
All right.
Second, we need to appoint commissioners because it's the only way to ensure that representation is guaranteed for all citizens, okay? So this makes up the village of Whitesboro, the village of Oriskany, and the town of Whitestown. So if these commissioners were elected, you essentially could have 5 commissioners from the town of Whitestown be elected, leaving no representation on that board of fire commissioners for a Oriskany or Whitesboro resident. The same could be said that 5 village of Whitesboro or village of Oriskany commissioners get elected. And in my opinion, that's just not fair.
Yeah.
The appointed model is a model that supports the ability to be able to make sure that we have representation for each of the local governments.
Yeah, but Pat, couldn't you set it up like you do with like council districts or wards, where each commissioner,
somebody would have to come for a certain
district would get one representative?
In theory, I agree with that, but unfortunately, the law doesn't support that. So we would not be able to circumvent the law or rewrite the law the way it is right now. And as far as another point on elected versus appointed, the elections in fire districts are overseen by the Board of Commissioners. So essentially, you have a Board of Commissioners, some of whom would be running for election, that would be selecting the chairman of who oversees the election and selecting the election inspectors. So it's a huge ethical issue for me for the Board of Fire Commissioners that is actually running for seats are the ones that are overseeing the elections, are the ones that are verifying signatures that were collected to run for the positions are accurate. That's a huge ethical issue for me. You know, recently, a few years ago, the Board of Elections decided to take over local village elections. And before that, village elections were overseen by the clerk. And that was somebody within the government of the elected officials that were running for office. So, unfortunately, fire district law is a little behind the times, and it has the sitting Board of Fire Commissioners overseeing the election process. And I don't think that's fair.
Is that fire district law a state law, or is that just local law?
Actually, the election of commissioners in fire districts is covered under New York State Town Law, Section 175.
All right. So what you're saying is you would not be able to, hey, let's start from scratch, make new rules, and apply it here. You're saying that could not be done?
No.
Without having a state referendum of some sort?
That's correct.
Yeah.
The law is what it is. Unfortunately, it's not perfect, but it's what we have to work with. And Another part of the law with election of fire commissioners is that it clearly states in the law that members of that fire department are not prohibited from becoming election commissioners. So essentially, again, elections could result in 5 members of the actual fire department that makes up this joint fire district should be the commissioners, or could be the commissioners.
All right.
And that results in the people within the department controlling the tax dollars and the budget that funds the department. And that was another selling point for me.
That was your other number 4 point. Andrew, quickly?
Yes. So there's some mailers going around from a concerned citizens group for public safety talking about the Whitesboro Fire Department possibly being eliminated because of this merger. Do you have any knowledge of who sent those out?
You know what, Andrew? I don't have any knowledge of who sent those out because the person behind it is a coward and a liar and refuses to be identified. 1 week ago today, I was interviewed on one of our local media stations, and I challenged that person to identify themselves because the information in that flyer is reprehensible. It's done nothing but try to strike fear into our residents into voting no. And
so Pat,
to nobody's surprise, that person has yet to come forward.
What are the details here as far as, I mean, does this just amount to basically rebranding of vehicles? Are there departments going away? Is this more expensive, less expensive? What can you kind of summarize what this merger would do?
There would be no rebranding of vehicles. Absolutely. And this, I want to be clear on this.
Does Whitesboro, by the way, does Whitesboro go away? Does that fire department actually go away?
No. Regardless of what anybody votes, you're going to be protected. All of the fire departments that are currently in place are still going to operate and take care of all the residents. So anybody that's leading you to believe that something's going to go away is simply just not true.
All right. I have a few people on here. You want to take some questions? If some people over the phone?
Absolutely. More than happy to.
All right. Pat is on. He's been waiting for a while. Good morning, Pat. Go ahead. You're on with Pat O'Connor, the mayor in Whitesboro. Pat, are you still with us?
I am.
There.
Okay, go ahead. Ask your question.
No, my question is, I hope the people turn around and vote no on that proposition tomorrow. And Mayor O'Connor forgets that there are 4 villages in the town of Whitestown: Oriskany, Whitesboro, Yorkville, and New York Mills. Now, he talks about the power of the voting for the town people. What about the people that live in New York Mills and Yorkville who live in the township cannot vote on this proposition, all because New York Mills and Yorkville decided to back out of this? Now, I hope the citizens also ask themselves the question, why did New York Mills and Yorkville opt to back out when New York Mills itself stands to lose quite a bit of it if this goes through?
All right, let's let the mayor answer that question. Pat, go ahead.
Good morning to the caller, and I appreciate your question. Unfortunately, his statement is absolutely incorrect. Yorkville and New York Mills residents that live in the town portion absolutely have the ability to vote on this, and I encourage them to go and do so. Now, I can't answer why the village of Yorkville backed out of this. They just thought it wasn't in their best interest at the time. Mayor Bialek in New York Mills will give you a laundry list of why it's not a good idea, none of which are true. The fact of the matter is this, is that most people don't know that New York Mills covers a huge portion of the town of Whitestown that encompasses Whitesboro residents. People in developments like Strawberry Fields, Glen Haven, Devereaux Estates.
That's all Whitestown.
They're all in the town of Whitestown.
That's right, and that's part of what New York Mills covers.
Let me finish, sir. That is part of what New York Mills covers. The problem with that is that all of those locations are further away from the New York Mills fire station than they are the Whitesboro fire station.
I beg to differ with you. I turned around and took mileage. You turn around, your chief, Mr. Sobel, says one of the reasons they want it is because of more manpower. If you needed more manpower, that's what the system called mutual aid is for. If you need more manpower, you just push the button and you turn around and you get more departments out. New York Mills and New Yorkville's fire department is about a mile to a mile and a half from Whitesboro's fire department. Oriskany's 3 miles away from the Whitesboro Fire Department. So how the heck are they going to get there a lot faster than them 2 departments are?
All right, let's let the mayor answer. Go ahead.
So the key point of all of the areas that I just mentioned is the intersection of Henderson Street and Clinton Street in Whitesboro. That's where really the pipeline to all of those developments go, and the location of that intersection is 1.8 9 miles away from the New York Mills fire station, not even taking into consideration all of the busy intersections they need to go through to get there. And it's 1.4 miles from the Whitesboro fire station.
That should have no bearing. If you got the manpower, the minute that the button is toned, your manpower arrives a lot faster to New York Mills than they do in Whitesboro. I know that for a fact.
Pat in Whitestown, I'm going to let you go because I have other callers, but I appreciate your call.
Okay.
All right. I have on the line, do you want to respond to any more of that, Pat, Mayor O'Connor?
No, obviously, it's somebody that's in heavy favor of New York Mills, and that's okay. But what a lot of people don't know is all of those Whitesboro residents and developments that I just mentioned are paying a fire tax that goes directly to the village of New York Mills, who is operating a huge cash cow because they cover that area of Whitesboro residents. For New York Mills, it's about money. They don't want to lose the money.
Larry, you're on with a question for Mayor O'Connor in Whitesboro.
Yeah, the commissioners that are going to be appointed, is it true that they're going to control the budget and the taxpayers have no vote? So they can make the budget anything they want, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, the taxpayers have to pay it, correct?
Actually, sir, that's not true. The Board of Fire Commissioners is responsible for crafting the budget, but they can't make it $10 million or $50 million. By law, there is statutory spending limitations for fire districts. So they can only go up to a certain amount based on the assessed value of the area that encompasses the fire district. Now, can that area be overridden? Yes, but the only way they can go outside of those statutory spending limitations is through a referendum that goes to the voters and they vote on it. So the taxpayers would vote on any additional spending that's outside of the statutory spending limitations.
Got it.
Okay.
Another thing they vote on is bonding, and that's something that doesn't even occur right now in local government. As the mayor, and I want to be clear that I would never, ever do this, I could go out and get a bond for $5 million and buy all new fire apparatus. Our village has the ability to do that, and by law, we are not required to bring that to the voters, which I think is poor.
Right.
All bonds should go to the voters.
Yeah.
In fire districts, it is law that if the fire district wants to bond for something, by law, it has to go to a public referendum for the voters to decide. And that is a huge, huge benefit. So people that saying that taxpayers aren't being represented appropriately, the ability to vote on bonding spending is huge. Other than that, the budget process is much like the one you would have in a local government, where they put the budget together.
Yeah.
There's a series of public hearings to discuss the budget and have resident input, and then the budget is either passed or voted down by the Board of Fire.
All right, Larry, thank you for the call, Larry. I appreciate
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, Pat, you called out the mayor of New York Mills, and he is on the line right now, Mayor John Bialek. Mayor, go ahead. You're on with Mayor Pat O'Connor. Line 3, Andrew, is that the case? What's that?
Yes, that's where he was on.
Why don't you pick up, because I don't...
Yep.
Oh, are you there, sir? John, are you there?
I took it from you.
Oh, you did.
How about that now?
John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you're on with Mayor Pat O'Connor.
Oh,
Good morning, Mayor.
everyone.
So, John, tell me, you've called in response here. What do you have to say?
Well, the mayor is very loose-lipped as far as everything's about money. The truth of the matter is that there's going to be an influx of over $450,000 into the Whitesboro Fire Department, because by definition, and that is always, we've been accused of making all this money and everything on these fires calls, and the truth of the matter is that back last year, the New York Mills had supplied the town and drafted a letter for a reduction in the tax in that protected area. We've been trying to reduce the tax for a number of years in that area, and quite honestly, we weren't responded to.
Mayor O'Connor in Whitesboro, go ahead.
Really, I have a couple of comments. Number one, I can't comment on the letter that the mayor is referring to because I'm not an elected representative of the town. I will say this: his comment that he states he's been trying to reduce the fire tax for several years, that's just a complete lie. When this whole thing started, one of the first informational sessions was at the Whitesboro Junior High School auditorium, And the mayor stood up and said the whole reason that this was being considered was because Whitestown government wasn't paying their fair share, which is also a lie. So you can't say that they're not paying their fair share on one hand, and now come on the radio one day before an election and say that you've been trying to reduce taxes because it's a lie.
John, Mayor New York Mills.
Well, in fact, if Mayor, it's all public record, and I have copies of those letters that went out to the town board. When this first fire district was proposed, New York Mills embraced it because, we understood that Oriskany couldn't make its calls, and the fact that Whitesboro was going to step in and aid the calls in the Oriskany area, we thought was a good thing. And we put our arms around it. We sent out a letter of support, and we said at that point that we would match any tax rate that those two districts would come up with. And that was not answered. And then on a second occasion, and these are all documented letters, so when the mayor comes out and says, that's a non-truth and everyone else is a liar who doesn't have his opinion, is just plain old false.
So may I respond to that, though?
Yes, go ahead.
I did not. Again, I can't comment on a letter that was sent to the town of Whitestown because I don't.
Well, then the mayor should not call everyone that doesn't have his opinion a liar.
Let him finish. John, let him finish. Go ahead, Pat.
I'm not calling anybody that has a different opinion than me a liar, sir. I'm calling you a liar. You never supported this proposal from day one. From day one, you never supported this proposal, and you did not want to be part of it. The reason you don't want to be part of it is because your fire department makes a ton of money off of Whitesboro residents. That is a fact. That's also public record.
Completely false. That is completely bogus. It's a non-truth.
So you don't operate at a huge surplus with the fire tax that you collect from the town of New Hartford.
Absolutely not. By your own admission, you left out the transfer of monies to the reserve account. You left out the building account, and you left out workman's comp.
I absolutely did not leave out workman's comp. And if you transfer money,
I'm sorry you didn't, Mayor.
If you transfer money into a reserve account for the Village of New York Mills, that's money that's coming from Whitesboro residents that you're putting in the Village of New York Mills reserve account. That transfer
was to a reserve account in the village funds earmarked by the state of New York for the purpose of future purchase of fire equipment.
I just want to review here. This is on the issue of this new merger between Whitesboro and Oriskany, but it does include residents of Whitestown and New York Mills. Mayor Pat O'Connor is from Whitesboro, and Mayor John Bialek from New York Mills. Pat, do you want to? I'm not sure that we're getting anywhere here, but do you want to respond to that?
No, I just have one question for the mayor. Mayor, are you part of the Concerned Citizens for Public Safety, or do you know who is?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are a number of members here and throughout the town that are very concerned. I mean, you had callers on earlier. They're all part of the members of the Concerned Citizens. Was I contacted by the members of Concerned Citizens? Absolutely.
And do you support the information that they've put out?
Yes.
So are you telling me, Mr. Keeler, Mr. Manaski, and all of the voters listening, that first mailer that they put out, if this merger goes through, would eliminate the Whitesboro Fire Department and exclude 115 volunteers? Is that what you're prepared to tell everybody?
As you well know, Pat,
yes or no?
Every time we met on the subject,
yes or no?
The question came up whether we kept pushing this thing out to the Board of Commissioners, because we had some very, very important questions on what the future of our department was.
Hold on, I turn it into the View. I can't let that happen.
The fire department was.
I understand, John. Mayor,
on to a Board of Commissioners.
Mayor Bialek, could you, for the rest of us, answer the specific question from Mayor O'Connor?
His question was, do you support the flyer? Do you agree with the flyer that came out that said the Whitesboro Fire Department would go away?
But the question was specifically about the Whitesboro going away. Do you believe that to be true?
Well, the Whitesboro Fire Department is going to go away because they're going to change their name to the Whitestown District. Now, that district, that certainly has a possibility of that fire department, by the vote, by the mayor's own admission, to be voted to a new location in the town. And that's certainly a possibility, and that's something that all the voters in Whitestown need to know. And when we talk about a board of
Pat, let
commissioners
him finish.
being put in by appointment, that's certainly a strong possibility.
So you're saying that? So what you're saying is that it after the commission is put in place, after the merger goes through, they could then vote to close down the firehouse in Whitesboro.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Mayor O'Connor.
Can I comment to that, Bill?
Yeah.
At no point during this or any time did I say that the firehouse would be relocated, as the mayor just claimed, and yet another one was lies.
But
the
mayor fails to realize
John,
he will no longer be making that decision.
Right, Mayor Bialek, please just let him respond, and then you can respond to what he says.
Okay. So again, this proposal is only as strong as its execution, and to guarantee that the best possible leg that we put forward to execute it as proposed is to be able to have input in the selection of the Board of Commissioners. I, as the mayor of Whitesboro, am not going to okay any appointment or support any appointment that is going to change anything to do with the operation of the Oriskany Fire Station or the Whitesboro Fire Station, period, now or ever. So, again, he sidestepped the question about whether or not that statement was truth or a lie.
What is it? What is the statement?
The Department in Whitesboro is not going anywhere.
What is it? What does the statement in the flyer say? Does it say that the the firehouse would be relocated?
No, it says that the Whitesboro Fire Department would be eliminated and 115 volunteers would be excluded. It's just a bold statement.
Well, I think the mayor is that flyer because the volunteers that we're talking about that are going to be excluded are the volunteers in the from the village of New York Mills Fire Department and Yorkville Fire Department. So I think that was the intent of the flyer. Now, getting back to the mayor's vote, on this appointed commissioner, the mayor may be absolutely correct, but he's only one vote. He can only make one appointment within the 5 commissioners. So that may be completely out of his hands in the future.
Yeah, Mayor O'Connor, he does bring up a good point. I mean, let's say, I don't know, 2 years, 10 years down the road, you're not the mayor anymore. Somebody else could come in and okay that. I mean, you're only overseeing this for as long as you're the mayor, and that could be,
That absolutely is true, but I have to believe that in every election moving forward in every municipality, the voters are going to elect who they think is going to best represent their interests. And I would be extremely surprised if you had a board of trustees and a mayor in the village of Whitesboro that would ever vote to appoint a commissioner that would move their firehouse.
Yeah, okay.
I have back to your village residents.
Well, Mr. Keeler, the point is that may be entirely true what the mayor is saying, but he's one vote on a board of 5 commissioners. You could take those other 4 commissioners and be outvoted, and your department may be gone.
Is that possible, Mayor?
No, I don't even know what he's talking about. He said, "I'm one vote on a board of fire commissioners."
You got a board. It's a very simple thing. You got a board of 5 commissioners. Guess what? Not all boards agree. And if you put all of your eggs in one basket,
could Whitesboro
and the 4 commissioners decide, hey, this department is moving, it will move.
Okay, Mayor O'Connor, is that a possibility?
No, he is right that not all boards agree, but all boards agree on this proposal. The town of Whitestown voted to support it. The village of Oriskany and Whitesboro voted unanimously to support it, and 13 out of 15 elected officials worked together over the last year and a half to bring this to where it is today. It's a solid plan. It's going to benefit residents, and New York Mills and Yorkville chose not to participate. They chose not to participate.
Well,
I can't help that.
Let's just back up. When it was proposed to New York Mills and Yorkville, all the pieces were already put into place, and the attorneys were in place, and then it was proposed to New York Mills in the fashion that, hey, listen, New York Mills, you can come on board, but this is a deal, take it or leave it. And one of our big concerns is, Well, we asked, well, what happens if one of the departments gets moved or equipment gets moved out of the area? We would have no control. Well, the answer that we had gotten was that will be up to the Board of Commissioners. The problem that we have with that, and going back to this vote on the Board of Commissioners, if a village controls a commissioner and their single appointment, that single commissioner can therefore sit down at the table and be outvoted 4-1, and that department still could be moved. And I understand that the mayor wants his department in his village, but once this vote goes through, it'll be completely out of his hands.
All right, I want to give Mayor O'Connor the chance to respond, and then I want to bring in Jeff Burkhardt, who is the fire chief in Oriskany. Mayor O'Connor, respond to that, could you please?
He's not focusing on the issues at hand. He's strategically trying to put the thought into people's head that firehouses are going to be moved, equipment's going to be moved, and I would like to comment on what he said earlier. He claims that he sent a letter in support of this merger in the beginning, yet he's saying now they were cut out from the very beginning. That's not true. Okay, in the summer of 2014, there was a meeting that took place upstairs in the village of Whitesboro Firehouse, and in attendance were all 4 mayors from Oriskany, Yorkville, New York Mills, and myself in Whitesboro, and 3 out of the 4 fire chiefs. It was discussed then with everybody. Mayor Bialek walked away from the table with no further desire to pursue anything to do with this fire district. Now, he claims it's a take it or leave it. We were in talks with Yorkville right up until a few months ago, probably 2 months ago, right before the public hearing where this proposal was moved forward. So talks continued with the village of Yorkville for more than a year. So to say that it was simply a take it or leave it is another complete lie, because we were in talks with Yorkville for almost 12 months about whether or not they were going to join.
Right.
So,
you're very good at calling everyone a liar there, Mayor, but the actual fact was Pete Sobel, your fire chief, stood up and informed our chiefs and myself that you can take this deal or leave it, because this is the way it is.
All right, I'm gonna.
Unfortunately, the problem that we have here is we have a great deal of volunteers who are on the outside looking in.
All right, Mayor O'Connor.
Bill, one quick comment. Again, I'm not calling everyone a liar. I'm calling Mayor Bialek a liar, and I'm calling the Concerned Citizens for Public Safety a liar.
All right, sit tight. I'm going to take a quick break because I have to. We're going to run a little over here. I do have Jeff Burkhardt, who's the chief in Oriskany, coming on next. So this is a big deal. It's worth us sticking with. So, gentlemen, please sit tight. I'm coming right back on WIBX.